African News Update on top Accolade News. As Africa's heartbeat quickens under the weight of juntas, failed dreamers and death's dark shadow, tonight's headlines lay bare a continent crying for justice, where border bends to power and hopes hinges on voices too often silenced. These are the raw pulse of people fighting for fairness in a world that too often looks away. Let's unpack it. AU urged to stop Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger from leaving Icc. Amnesty urges release of 36 jailed Cameroon opposition supporters. IMF team arrives in Nairobi to explore new lending program. South Africa pushes Washington to ease tariffs. As conflict and repression tighten their grip on the Sahel, the fight for accountability has now shifted to whether three nations will walk away from the world's last cut of appeal. Human Rights Watch has called on the African Union to press Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger to reverse their announced withdrawal from the International Criminal Court, warning the move would strip civilians of vital protection as military juntas and Islamist groups continue committing war crimes. The Sahel's fragile population already face impunity at home and shrinking avenues for redress regionally, making the ICC their last shield. When justice is abandoned, tyranny sharpens its blade. Blades of repression cut deep south, where Cameroon's ruler treats protest as treason, chaining voices that dare whisper change. Amnesty International has called for the immediate release of 36 supporters of Cameroon's opposition movement for the Renaissance of Cameroon, detained since 2019 for peaceful protests against President Paul Biya, who is seeking his 8th term at age 92, despite widespread poverty and repression. Their continued imprisonment alongside fresh arrest of opposition members during the campaign season underscores growing fears of the civic space and democratic freedoms in the country, reminding the world that in Biya's Cameroon, silence is treated as loyalty and dissent as a crime. From locked cells to locked ledgers, Nairobi's fiscal fever spikes as IMF envoy lands, dangling debt relief with strings that could strangle the streets. The IMF will begin discussions with Kenya from September 25th to October 9th on a possible new lending program after the country's $3.6 billion facility expired in April, as officials seek fresh support to manage debt repayment and stabilize finance. Kenya's last program faltered over unmet fiscal reforms and scrapped tax hike amid deadly protests, but the fund insists it remains committed to helping Nairobi safeguard stability and governance. For a nation weighed down by debt and discontent, the choice is stark: reform or risk sinking deeper into the spiral of fiscal fragility. Rhetoric turns to retaliation across the Atlantic, where Pretoria pleads for mercy from tariffs, treating trade like a battlefield. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said his government is negotiating with Washington to roll back tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump, urging the continuation of the African Growth Opportunity Act, while warning at the UN that global trade is being weaponized against vulnerable economies. As Africa's most industrialized nations fight to preserve access to the US market, Ramaphosa's message was blunt: when trade becomes a weapon, development becomes collateral damage. You're watching the African News Update on top Accolade News. Do stay with us. Still to come. Thanks for staying with us. In a climate where global powers increasingly link diplomacy to domestic governance, Washington has turned its spotlight to Nigeria's corruption woes with a stern travel warning. The U.S. mission in Nigeria has warned that government officials and high-profile individuals found guilty of corruption will face visa restrictions, extending Washington's long-standing stance against graft that undermines democracy and growth. The move follow years of warnings and describe corruption as deeply embedded in Nigeria's institution and devastation to society. With transparency, advocates decrying fresh cases of mismanagement and abuse of office, the U.S. message is clear. In the fight against corruption, borders can be closed, even when justice at home remains open-handed. A group of West African deportees has found themselves caught in the crossfire of U.S. immigration policy and Ghana's uneasy cooperation. 11 West African nationals deported from the United States to Ghana have been sent back to their home countries, despite warnings they could face torture or persecution. Their lawyer revealed after their lawsuit to halt removal became moot. The group, comprising Nigerians, Togolese, Malians, a Liberian and a Gambian, had previously won protection rulings from U.S. immigration judges, yet were transferred under a Ghana-U.S. deal that President John Mahama said was not an endorsement of Donald Trump's crackdown. Rights advocates warn this decision betrays asylum principles. When human dignity is traded for expediency, justice becomes disposable. As Africa's sound continues to captivate global audiences, plans are now underway to give the continent its own stage at the world's most prestigious music awards. The long-awaited Grammy Africa Awards may debut around 2029 or 2030, Global Enterprise CEO Lady Dentaa Amoateng revealed, noting that building the membership and structures will take years, with Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Rwanda earmarked as hosts, while Ghana missed out due to financial constraints. Modeled after the Latin Grammys, the initiative seeks to give Africa's diverse music genres global recognition. While Africa's rhythm is ready, the world stage must first be built. Finally, in sports, CECAFA boss suspended. The CECAFA executive suspended its director, Uka John Getchio, after a meeting of member presidents, even as South Sudan Jamus SC marked their CAF Champions League debut with a spirited 0-0 draw against Sudanese giant Al Hilal in Juba, alongside mixed results of regional clubs. From boardroom upheavals to underdog resilience, East African football proved that its battles are fought as fiercely off the pitch as on it. From Sahel's broken shields to the rhythm of Africa's rising anthems, tonight's stories weave a continent unyielding spirit, where every jailed voice, every tariff sting, every goal line screams defiance against despair. At Top Accolade News, we don't just report the pulse of Africa, we amplify its heartbeat, raw and unbroken. Stay tuned tomorrow, because this fight, this hope, never fades. I am Ojoromi Okocha, and this is the African News Update on Top Accolade News, keeping you connected to the pulse of the continent.